He entered, but only one survived. We're talking about TJC's annual Thunderdome art competition. KLTV7's Lauren Tier witnessed the destruction art students call therapy ahead of the end of semester finals.
Believe it or not, these pieces of art were created to be destroyed, an unorthodox approach to a unique teaching moment.
Artists need to be able to sell their work, give their work away, trade with other artists, and just send it out into the world, so to speak, and embrace really the process and not the product.
The competition is open to all students. They can submit any medium they choose, and this year there were paintings on canvas, but also paintings on TVs. There was a sword and a mask and even a jewelry box, but all perished at the hand and sledgehammers of the annihilators.
The big mighty hammer is just really fun.
Jaclyn Walker, affectionately known as Bubbles for most of the year, becomes Bubbles, destroyer of dreams, for a few hours at Thunderdome. As a way to repurpose the destroyed art, she has collected scraps after the past 3 competitions as a sort of wearable memento.
I could do an absolute, super fun vest to wear as an annihilator and to just really show off, what Thunderdome is about. And it's just really cool because it's that cycle of, destruction and creating again.
This year's winner watched patiently from the crowd as her painting survived round after round.
I had fairies in my stomach.
Wilma Allgood and her husband Doug have been taking art classes at TJC since the fall of 2022.
I didn't realize art was a competitive sport, but it is.
She says it is never too late to do what makes you happy.
I mean, it's obvious that I'm older than the other students, and it doesn't feel like it.
Lauren Tier, KLTV 7 News.
Wilma walked away with her painting and $400. She says she plans on selling that piece that survived.